I would say that 500 years of planning would not have prepared me. There's no amount of videos, no amount of blogs, no amount of any type of preparation that would truly prepare you, comprehensively prepare you for the experience that I had.
Hi, I'm Brian Sapp. Welcome to the People in Your Neighborhood podcast, the podcast where I introduce you to the people in our neighborhood of Northern Indiana. People making an impact that you may or may not have a chance to meet. Today I'm talking with Tyler Brock. Tyler is a Navy vet who made a journey that challenged and changed him as much, if not more, than his time in the Navy. Let's talk. Today we're at Goshen Brewing Company. I'm with Tyler Brock. He is a Fairfield grad, a Navy veteran, and now I just learned a through hiker. Well, I knew what he had done, but I learned that we call it a through hiker of the Appalachian Trail. Thanks for coming, Tyler.
Thank you so much for having me. It's after the past 4.5 months, just getting to talk about it and not having to walk it's refreshing. It's a nice break.
Being able to talk about it in a nice climate-controlled place and not being windswept.
Yes.
And I asked the Goshen Brewing Company if they'd let us talk here because I'm a fan of craft beer, and Tyler is too, so They were more than happy to let us come and enjoy something while we talk, so sip on. So you finished the trail last week. I don't want to get too deep yet. I want to find out who you are, but how do you feel now?
I'm still a little bit I'd describe it as a trail hangover. My body, I can still feel my body getting used to, not expending so much energy. My eating habits are wonky right now. I pretty much eat anything that's trail hunger. We call it trail hunger.
Okay.
And so I'm pretty much eating anything that's put in front of me still. So I gotta start to limit that. But emotionally, I'm still getting over the fact that it's done. That this huge wall that was in front of me I'm now on the other side of it, that's why I'd say the trail hangover will maybe last another week, because it's still getting to me. It's still hitting me.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it. Let's start with, who are you? I know I worked with your mom as a teacher, and so I saw on her Facebook posts sharing this. But can you tell me a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, I'm 24. I'm a Navy veteran. I served on the Leyte Gulf as a yeoman, second-class petty officer for 4 years. And I actually just got out in January, and I decided I'd been on the trail before. I'd gone to college before, and I joined the Navy just to kind of get away. I love Indiana, but I just needed a little break. I needed a new experience. So I joined and I left, and I had a heck of a time. It was in some ways it's like the trail. It wasn't the best, it wasn't the worst. It was a time, and I made some of the best friends I'll ever have in my life, and I got to travel the world. I've seen some amazing places and done some amazing things. Awesome. And so with that experience, I knew about the trail, and so I got out in January, and I knew I wanted to go to college in the fall, so I just had a perfect little time to.
Good window to do that.
Yes.
So I read you have a blog that you started for this trip called TrailingTylercom. Go check it out. It's really good. There's tons of pictures. Tyler was talking about how he's trying to upload on Wi-Fi and from the top of mountains, but that you started thinking about this 5 years ago, and then you had some experiences and interactions with the trail. Tell me a little bit, how did this dream start, and then how did you prepare?
So it started, my Appalachian Trail experience started in a 2-day window. I had already joined the Navy, so I was waiting to leave, and I was working, and me and a buddy were just kind of hanging out here in August of 2014, and we were like, what the heck, let's walk on the Appalachian Trail. And so literally less than 48 hours later, we had met with our youth pastor who had experienced it before, and he gave us some equipment, some maps, and we just hopped in our car and drove. We had no experience, nothing. I had cans of food in my backpack. Our weight was ridiculous, and so we hopped on trail, and it was extremely difficult. We had no idea what we were doing. We had both, only done simple camping, nothing backwoods, and so we did that, and it kind of lit a fire in my mind. And that fire burned for 5 years, and
Okay.
so throughout my time in the Navy, I was doing the research, doing actual research, finding good gear, and actually, so I was stationed in Virginia, and the Appalachian Trail, a quarter of it is in Virginia. So me and some buddies, while I was in, we drove out we did like McAfee's Knob, and I got to hike McAfee's Knob with Haley, and so even while I was in the Navy, I got to experience some parts of the trail.
Okay.
It wasn't a wholesome picture, but it was a little glimpse of the trail.
So you spent 5 years planning, and I'm reading about this, and read about this in your blog a little bit. Did it go the way you thought? I mean, were you prepared when you hit the trail? Where did you start, and did it go the way you thought?
So I would say that 500 years of planning would not have prepared me. There's no amount of videos, no amount of blogs, no amount of any type of preparation that would truly prepare you, comprehensively prepare you for the experience that I had. I realized that about maybe 5 to 10 days in, that like, oh crap, I have made the biggest underestimation of my life, but I stuck with it, and it paid off.
So where did you start? Started down in Georgia?
Yes.
Springer Mountain, right?
Yes.
Because you start off each blog post saying how far you are from Springer Mountain, and then Katahdin?
Katahdin. Yeah.
And how far you were from each.
Yes.
So Springer Mountain. Tell me about maybe that getting there and getting started.
There. So the trail starts at Springer Mountain down in Georgia, which is about an hour north of Atlanta. So there's an approach trail that gets you, so there's no roads, there's a Forest Service road about a mile, but there's an approach trail that takes you, it's 8-mile approach trail. Wow. And that's the only way to get to the top of this mountain. So besides going to the Forest Service road or so you before you even start the trail, you have to walk 8 miles to get up there. And so we drove down, got an Airbnb, and kind of took that last night to just relax and prepare. And so started on the approach trail, got one of the classic photos is there's an arch down there, and got down there, and I had no idea what I was. I was so at that time I was moving on pure euphoria and pure excitement. It was adrenaline was pushing me through the miles, and that wore off quickly. But then it's still the first few days, the first week you're in Georgia, so it was still a little. And hiking in the South in March is still an interesting experience. There was plenty of snow and rain, and first week was rough.
So as you're going, my guess is was there such a thing as a typical day on the trail?
Oh, a typical day. Well, I mean, there's no such thing as rigidity on the trail, but there is a slight routine. Think of normal day routine, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So you're expending so much energy that kind of everything's based around energy. And so breakfast is the first thing, just to gobble up as much food, and then I would usually base my day, okay, I'm going to walk this far so I can stop and eat lunch here. And then also depending, if it's raining, I can't eat. You can't sit out in the rain, so I'd go to shelters and eat. And but the biggest fluctuation throughout the days would be mileage, like how I'm going to go X amount of miles, this amount of miles. And there was so many times, I would say almost every day, every other day, I would say I'm going to do this amount, and then the weather or the trail throws something at you, and it screws up your plan, and that's part of the trail.
What was maybe the biggest impact on that mileage? Was the weather and the terrain?
Yes, because say I would be doing a great day until noon, and then all of a sudden it's a torrential downpour. And sometimes I would just get so sick of walking, I would just throw my tent down. I'd be begging the trail to give me a spot to stop and a nice little flat area to put up my tent. Sometimes it didn't work out. Sometimes you had to keep moving, but the terrain, because you can read an altitude map and read a map all you want, but until you get out and walk the terrain, your feet start aching, that's when you get a mile in. You're like, oh crap, I'm not going to be able to do as much as I thought.
How many pairs of shoes did you go through?
4. I've still got my 4th pair now.
Okay.
And interesting enough, so I thought I was going to go through 2, and I got up to New Hampshire and I realized like I got to get a new pair.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want to buy a super expensive pair just for a couple hundred miles. So I did an idiotic thing, and I bought a $20 pair at Walmart of shoes, and those lasted about 115 miles. And they were the most destroyed piece of shoes I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, but they made it 115 miles, so I think I got my money's worth out of them. Okay. Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of dwelling on negatives. Negatives happen in life, but as a teacher, I've learning from the negatives. Are there 1 or 2 moments that were maybe really challenging that you think will stick with you, but something that was challenging that's going to stick
I can
with
think
you?
of 2 or 3 specifically. The first one would have been in the Smokies, the day after I went to Newfound Gap. The night got down to about 5 to 10 degrees, and I spent the whole night rubbing my feet so they wouldn't freeze, and then I would boil water and put it in my water bottle and shove it in my sleeping bag to keep myself warm. That whole night I maybe got 30 minutes of sleep, but the next morning I had to wake up and keep walking. Mm-hmm. You know, you just have to deal with it. And so my feet, I was so scared that night that I was going to get frostbite. Mm-hmm. And thankfully I didn't. But when I woke up, my tent was completely frozen.
Oh, wow.
And so I had to actually like wiggle the door of my tent to break off the ice of it. And then the second experience would be around Connecticut. I got pretty severely sick with everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were saying, we were talking before we started rolling, because you were talking about your vlog. You try to keep it family friendly, so to speak. And you said that getting sick on the trail is like not like
it's not like getting sick at home where you have the comfort of your toilet and your bathroom, and you can separate your bed and the bathroom. Most of the time you don't have to sleep in the bathroom. Sometimes you do. Well, when you are violently ill on trail, sometimes you don't have time to dig a cat hole when you go to the bathroom. So it's in the middle of the night, and there's critters crawling around, and thankfully it wasn't raining. I had to clean parts of my tent after that night.
All right. Anything else that was challenging?
So after the nights I got sick, there was a moment somewhere in Massachusetts where I threw my poles down, and I threw everything down, and I said, to hell with it, Ike, I'm done. And I was looking up Amtrak prices on my phone. I was ready to. I had service, so I was ready to call my parents and ask for a little cash to buy a ticket home, and I was done. And thankfully, I stopped, and I called my girlfriend, and I said I'm gonna wait till the weekend. I think it was a Thursday, so I said I was gonna wait till Sunday, and I'm thankful I gave myself that time, because I was hours, maybe less than hours from just quitting. And so, it just took one phone call, and that's all it took to change my mind. And that wasn't the only moment like that. There were plenty of moments like that where I was just a phone call away from going home. But that after getting sick and being in Massachusetts, I was at my wit's end.
So looking back at that and knowing you were to that spot, I think life is there's tons of challenges. It's how we respond to them. What do you think you're going to take away from maybe that last moment there where you were ready to call it quits? And then, how do you think that changed you?
Yeah. The one thing I realized, especially about, maybe my previous self and now, is there's a difference between saying you're going to quit and actually quitting. So much of my life, I've not even said I was going to quit, I just quit. And the trail, I said I was going to quit, but I didn't quit. So I took that and I made that distinction in my life. Like, sometimes it's okay to say you're going to quit, but there's a difference between saying you're going to quit and going through with it. And I didn't go through with it.
Okay.
which I guess is an interesting take on it.
Yeah,
but,
no, I think that's it. Yeah, sometimes it's just we got to talk and blow off that steam, I think.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about, like I said, I'm not a big fan of negatives, but challenges are going to happen in this life. What are some moments that maybe lifted you up? I mean, so it's 2,000 miles of hiking. I've been on parts of the trail. I've been, not as extensively as you. It's beautiful. But, I mean, what are some of the moments that brought you up being on the trail for 4.5 months?
The friends you make on trail, just the trail magic, the trail angels. So the relationships, I guess, would be the biggest spot. Sometimes there are beautiful views, but in some ways you get kind of tired of views, and you get tired of beautiful ridge lines and stuff like that. But sometimes all it took was it's a really crappy day of hiking, but then you get to a shelter and you just see familiar faces, and you can all talk about how you hated that day. You kind of it's almost it's even to stay positive. It's almost like to stay positive you have to wallow in sadness in some ways, which is it's a reverse way of doing it. But being able to sit and relax after a hard day of hiking and just thinking like, I just did that. Sometimes every day I would just sit in my tent like, holy crap, I'm already here, like, okay, all right, like, give myself a little credit, which is hard to do, but sometimes you have to take that and other people, making trail friends and the relationships on trail, that is, I would say one of the biggest keys of it, of being positive and staying positive, is the culture that the trail is and the way you become part of the culture.
So let's talk a little bit about the people. So I can imagine views get, if you're seeing ridges, like I spent 3 weeks in Charlottesville and the Shenandoahs, and like it wasn't new anymore. So
yeah,
I
exactly.
can imagine 4.5 months. But people are always, I think that's a huge thing. That's why I wanted to do this podcast, so I can meet people like that. Like, tell me, is there one person like that you're gonna like a memory of hanging out with them or anything like that? Is there a story you'd be willing to share?
Whittling it down to one person is...
Well, I mean, there's a couple. I mean, I don't know. We've got some time, so.
Yeah. Let's see. So one person, I want to talk about her. She's an amazing person. She had talked about doing the trail with her husband and was planning on doing it with him, and then he passed away.
Oh, wow.
So she took some time off and then decided to do it, and she actually started on his 40th birthday, March 4th, and then she just finished the trail a couple of days after me. And she was one of those people who was like extremely positive, even though she would tell you how much she's hating the trail, and she would laugh at me because of how much I would say, I'm done with this and sick of it. But she was always extremely positive, and then I learned that she would actually, after she sold her house, she would live in her tent because she loved living in her tent so much, even though she had plenty of money, and she just loved living in a tent. Then there was actually, I met a guy in the Shenandoahs. He was stationed in the Middle East the same time I was deployed.
Okay.
And when my ship would refuel with another ship, he was security detail on the other ship. So come to find out, we realized that middle of 2017, we were about 100 yards from each other.
Wow.
Had no idea who each other was, small Navy, but we still didn't know. And then we come to find out we're sitting in Shenandoah, and we're just, talking, and realize like, hey, you were there,
wow.
you were there, and we had never known it if at some random shelter we had both stopped at in Shenandoahs. And there was quite a few veterans on trail, plenty of. The first man to through hike the trail was a veteran.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, and so I was able to meet plenty of veterans and hear why they're doing it, why they got out of the military, and then why the trail is part of their process, of just transitioning back into this real world. Yeah.
What about, I read in some of your posts you talked about going into like getting rides into town or going places. Was there anybody like along the trail that was not instrumental, but just somebody like that wasn't hiking through, but you stopped and you met that sticks with you?
There was at a hostel in Maine, one of the owner of the hostel, his name was Steve, and he had been I found out later that he ran ultra marathons, and he was sponsored by Nike, so he was this bigwig. And then he said about one day 25, 30 years ago, he just got fed up with it and bought a ticket to India. And so since then, he spent 6 months in India, 6 months in Maine running this hostel.
Oh, wow.
And there was no electricity in the place. The shower was outside, tucked away in the back corner so no one could see you, but it was completely outside next to a river. And I was there July 4th weekend, and we just spent there was about eight or 10 of us, and we just all relaxed. And even on the trail you have electricity, but here we had nothing, and we had no service, nothing. And this guy just enjoyed us, and he was because a lot of northbounders by that point are so fed up with everything, but he fed off of our energy, we fed off of his, and we celebrated July 4th at a hostel in Maine with no electricity, no service, but it was just good fellowship sitting around the fire. And that guy, I'll never forget that guy, just because there wasn't anything crazy about him. You could tell he was as zen as could be. Nothing was ever going to change with that guy. I needed that at that point in the trail when I was so down. This guy's positive, and so that was a good experience. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I got two questions. One more about the trail. You said no amount of videos, blogs, or anything could prepare anybody for their trip. Do you have, what would be one piece of advice? I don't know that I could do it through but I would love to hike it. But what would be one piece of advice you'd give to somebody that's thinking about the Appalachian Trail?
I'm thinking about hiking it?
Yeah.
Oh man, if you think you know what you're doing, you're wrong. And if you think you want to hike it, you're still wrong. Everything you might know about the trail before you get on it will change, and that's almost the beauty of it. It's not one of the sayings on the trail is the trail will always be there. So no matter what you're doing here, no matter what you're doing on the trail, no matter what you're doing there, the trail is always going to be there. You're not going to be, but the trail will. And so whatever you prepare for, whatever you're anticipating, if you have to wait a certain amount of time, if you only have one chance to do it, you do it now. Do it, but just know that the trail will always be there. The trail will always be the same. You're going to change, and nothing you do will prepare you for it. You just have to go for it.
That was one of the things that you said that stuck with me. That no matter, so that's interesting because I read it in about how the trail's always going to be with you, but I think that it's interesting that the trail is going to be there whether you've been on it or not. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Dude, that's deep. That's deep.
Yeah.
That's deep.
Yeah, and that's one of the I learned that 2 weeks in. I first heard that phrase, and that'll stick with me. As a thru hiker, I get to say I'm a thru hiker, but no matter what, the trail will always be there. I won't, but the trail will.
Would you read this for me?
I'd
love to hear it in your words.
Yeah.
This is from Tyler's last post about finishing the trail. It's near the end here, but I want to hear him read it.
Every damn second, it was worth it. I haven't given the trail enough credit. It took the best and worst out of me. It beat and pounded me into submission. It sucked everything from me. Through all that it's taken, it's also given me everything I'll ever need.
Would you do the trail again? Are you okay? So
that's a loaded question. No.
Do you regret it?
Do I regret it? No. Hell no, I don't regret it.
Good decision?
Hell yeah, it was a good decision. Would I do it again? No. But because I think one of the biggest reasons of that I'll slowly realize throughout time is that no matter if I would thru hike it again, I'll never get my first thru hike back. I'll never experience it the way I did. I'll never
I think
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
It's you can't have that
Yeah.
first. It's like a first impression. You
I
don't get
did
a
it.
second chance at a first
Yeah.
impression.
Yeah, I did it. I had my experience. The trail was everything I didn't expect it to be. You know, like I said, you can't expect it. And because of that, I don't think I ever could do it again, because it's not. Then there are people that do it. There are people that hike it every single year, and they had a different experience than I do, and they probably have a different experience every time they thru hike it. But I got what I needed from the trail, and so I won't ever hike it again.
So what's next?
I am starting at Butler University at the end of August, using my GI Bill, and I'll be studying English education. And I think I'm a sophomore, halfway through my sophomore year.
Okay.
So I get 2.5 years left.
Good. And then what's your goal? I mean, you want to do what with the English education?
I want to be a high school teacher. I love literature. The blog was really my largest foray into writing. I do like to write, but I'm much more of a literature. I'm a humanities-minded person. I love to read. I love classics. I love deep thinking books. So I'd love to experience a classroom, and I know I've got plenty of life experience now too. And I love tying my life experiences into books that I read, and so maybe someday I'll write a book too. That's definitely one of my goals, is to write a book. I actually had thought I'd have written one by now, so I didn't accomplish that goal by now, but that's okay. I've got a lot to write a book on this one now. So.
Well, having been a teacher for 10 years after a previous career, I think just your experiences, being worldly, and now on the trail, I think that it'll help you connect with the kids, and it'll be like, I think that'll be awesome. You'll be a good teacher.
Thank you.
So there's much more to Tyler's story. I want to thank him for coming and spending.
Thank you. Yeah.
5 days
I love
off
getting
the trail.
I love getting to talk about it. Yeah.
That's awesome, and I hope more people get to hear your story. There's much more that we weren't able to cover. It's in his pictures and 3 to 4 day chunks written on his blog, and that's TrailingTyler.com. And so thank you. Good luck with everything. I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me a place to voice, about the trail, and I hope people just go out and experience it for themselves now.
I think that's the only thing you can't do. It's there.
The trail will always be there.
Always be there. Give it a chance.
Yeah.
All right, and thank you to the Goshen Brewing Company for letting us have a quiet moment to be here and letting us have a drink and enjoy some nice beer and
talk beer and conversation.
Have a chance to talk. That's it for this episode of The People in Your Neighborhood. Thanks for listening, but don't stop here. Get out, meet someone new, and learn more about the people in your neighborhood. Keep up with this segment and my Going Local segments by liking or subscribing to us here on Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, or Apple Podcasts. Just search up Going Local Indiana.